Hello, my wonderful learners. I hope you are still safe and healthy. I'm still teacher EBRAHIM, your teacher for general studies and communication skills, and at least until schools open. You remember this program is brought to you by the Rwanda Education Board in partnership with MASTERCAD Foundation and Inspire, Educate, and Empower Rwanda. And you remember, due to the COVID-19 pandemic, the government of Rwanda, in a bid to contain the spread of the virus, closed schools. And for that reason, we have to study from home, at least until schools are open in September 2020. We are still talking about the topic of democracy and good governance. Now, in our last class, we talked about the concept of democracy. We defined democracy as the government of the people, for the people, and by the people. This definition was suggested by Abraham Lincoln, the 16th President of the United States of America, a great man and a powerful leader of his time.
Come along and play with us.
Today we are going to look at the concept of good governance. We are going to understand what good governance is and also identify the indicators of good governance. Remember, you need to have a notebook and a pen in hand, ready to write notes. As I have been saying, you need these notes for revision. You also need to clear away any noise and any other forms of disturbance or disruptions. Now, I want you to think about what good governance means for a minute. Think about it. What does good governance mean?
Come along and play with us.
Well done. Now, I'm sure you've come up with some wonderful ideas, and I want you to compare those ideas that you have come up with the one I'm going to give you. Now, good governance is a term used to describe how public institutions conduct their affairs in the management of their activities and how they manage resources of the nation or the people in the country. Therefore, individuals entrusted with serving the citizens and performing state responsibilities should be held responsible and accountable for the ethical and moral consequences of their actions. Promotion of good governance in a country involves three key actors, and these are the public sector, which is the state government, the private sector, which is the everyday businessman or everyday business owner or company, and then we have what we call the civil society organizations, such as NGOs and human rights activists. Now, generally speaking, good governance seeks to promote the well-being of the citizens, and to achieve that, the government aims at dealing with a wide range of issues. And I want you to write them down. I want you to get a pen and write down what the government needs to do to achieve what we call good governance. And as it promotes the well-being of the citizens, the government tries to ensure that they do all that is necessary to eliminate poverty. The government needs to do all that needs to be done to eliminate poverty. That is number one. Number two, the government needs to engage and to involve all stakeholders in what the government is doing. This helps to ensure that there is accountability and transparency. Like I said government needs to engage and to involve all stakeholders in what they are doing, because this helps with ensuring accountability and transparency. Then we also, number three, there's a need to promote equity and equality among all citizens, regardless of gender, ethnic race, age, ability, religion, and so on. All citizens need to be treated equally and be served as they deserve, regardless of whether they are Muslim or Christian or whatever race, as long as you are in the country of Rwanda, the government needs to treat you equally. And then number four, there's need to ensure ethical, honest behavior, and also ensure that there is absence of corruption in public service. And we call this moral governance. The people who are serving on behalf of the government and the government that is serving the people, they need to ensure that they do the work ethically, which means they do it honestly and without any form of corruption in their service. And then number 5, there is need to promote or ensure sustainability. And then what we call effectiveness, and then the predictability of the country. This means that the country should be able to deal with all its challenges and do this competently, which means the country needs to be sure of where the direction is taking in terms of disaster preparedness. If there is a problem, the government needs to be able to be ready to deal with this problem, and then help the people in case they need this help, and also predict how much is needed to deal with whatever problem comes up. Next is to make sure that the government is legitimate, which means that the government that is in power is serving the people with the people's authority, which means the people voted for this government and put it in power, and therefore they have what we call legitimacy. For a government to be legitimate, the people need to be the ones that put it in power. We have been talking about the concept of democracy, where the majority of the people vote for a government and put it in power. That government that is voted into power by the majority is what we call a legitimate government. And then the government needs to ensure that there is fulfillment of what we call basic needs, the basic needs of people, such as water. People need to have water. This water is normally in Rwanda, the water is provided by WASAC. And then we have information. People need to have information through TVs, radios. They need to know what is going on. That's a basic need. And then the education. Children need to go to school. Because education is a basic need, right now we are getting it through radio and TV. And then people need to have food during times when it is, for example, these times of COVID-19, it is very difficult for everyone. So the government now tries to provide people with some food, which we call relief, food relief, helping the people who need food, people who cannot afford to get food during these difficult times. The government also needs to see that people have housing, or what we call shelter. And there are so many other basic needs that the government needs to take care of. People need to have basic needs, and these basic needs are the responsibility of the government, especially for those people who may not be able to afford these basic needs. And then the government also needs to ensure that there is respect for human rights and the rule of law. In order for the government to have what we call good governance, there is need to respect human rights and the rule of law. What the law says is what should be done, not what an individual thinks or feels. There is also need to promote participation in democratic elections and nation building. People need to be actively involved. People need to participate in democratic elections. Everyone has the duty, as long as you are maybe 18 and above, you should be able to participate in elections. You should also participate in activities that help to build your nation, make it a better place. For example, activities such as Umuganda. These activities make the country better. The reason as to why Rwanda is one of the cleanest countries in the world is because of activities such as Umuganda. Now, there is also need to promote what we call judicial independence. We have been talking about the 3 arms of government. We shall see later in our next lesson the 3 arms of government. But there's what we call the judiciary. The judiciary needs to be independent of the other 2 arms of government. And then this means that the judiciary or the judges should do their work without being controlled by the executive or the legislature. That's what is needed for good governance to take place. And then next is to make sure of effective utilization of public resources. This means that there's need for proper management of taxpayers' money. Taxpayers are the people who pay the taxes that the government uses to facilitate the programs that it comes up with for the benefit of the people in the country. However, this money needs to be used effectively. Effective, we mean it should be used to improve the situation of the people. And then there's also need to promote what we call democratic pluralism, which means that everybody is free to practice. There's need for freedom where people are free to practice their religious, cultural, and social interests. As long as these activities that these people are participating in, these religious groups or meetings that they are holding, are within the law, everyone should be free to do whatever they want regarding religion, regarding their culture, as long as these things do not break the law. Because some of these traditional or cultural activities are outdated and a bit primitive, and sometimes they are not fair to some genders. So maybe some of these activities can be thrown out of these people's cultures because they are they are abusing the rights of other people. Remember when we talked about human rights, the government promotes human rights but ensures that these rights do not infringe on the rights of certain people. As you promote the right to practice your culture, remember that your culture should not affect another person. So if you have a religion, it should not be a cult where people may end up getting killed. Where you need to do whatever you do within the law, because it needs to be legal. It needs to be done within the confines of the law. And then there is also a need to have leaders with a strategic vision for the country. The most important thing is leaders who have a strategic vision for the country. They should know, or they should have a plan on where they see the country maybe in 7 years, because, for example, we have a 7-year term for president and maybe other elected officials. And all these people, before you come to office, you should know, if I'm going to be an executive secretary of a sector, I need to know, where do I want to see my sector after 7 years? Normally, every country can come up with what we call a vision of about 30 or 50 years. In 50 years, we want our country to be here. In 20 years, we want to have our country reach this level. So every country needs leaders of that nature. And I hope you have written all those points that I've been mentioning, because it is very important that you write notes. I reminded you need a pen and a book, not even just a paper, a book, so that you can write these notes. I hope we are still together.
Come along and play with us.
Now, let us look at the characteristics of good governance. I want you to think about these characteristics. What makes a good government, and how can we see a good government? Think about that.
Come along and play with us.
Okay, I hope you are still with me, and I hope you have written down some things. Let us compare what you have with my list. I'm going to give you a list of what we call the characteristics of a good government. First, a good government should be equitable and inclusive. Equitable and inclusive. Equitable can be spelled as EQUITABLE. And then inclusive. Now, this means everyone should be treated equally. Everyone should be treated equally. That's what equitable means. Everyone should be treated equally, have equal opportunity to participate and do whatever they want, as long as it builds the nation. Inclusive means allowing everyone to participate in public service. Number 2, a good government should follow the rule of law. This means that the government does not break the law, and the leaders don't behave as if they are above the law, because nobody is above the law. And then number 3, the good government should be consensus oriented. Consensus can be spelled as CONSENSUS. Consensus oriented, which means that the government takes into consideration the view of the majority. And then number 4, a good government should be transparent, which means everything is done in the open and everyone is informed. The members of the public are informed of whatever is being done. That's why I think every government office almost has a Twitter account, a Facebook account, where the information is posted. This is for purposes of transparency. A good government should be participatory, which means everyone is provided with an opportunity to participate in building and serving his or her country. Then a good government should be accountable. It should always remain answerable to the public. A good government should be accountable and should always remain answerable, should always remain answerable to the public. And then lastly, a good government must be effective, or what we call good governance, must be effective and efficient. Effective and efficient. The work that the officers of the government do must be done professionally. That's why you need to be professional to work with the government, and this means also that the government needs to make a difference in the lives of the citizens. Okay, now those are the 7 characteristics of good governance, and I hope you have included the few points that we are missing on your list. Because I remember I asked you to make a small list.
Come along and play with us.
Now let us move on to the challenges facing good governance, because good governance cannot just exist. Sometimes there are challenges. These challenges range from what we call limited finance. Sometimes there's not enough money to do the work. And then there are individual interests where an individual may put himself first before the rest of the people that he is serving, which may also bring about corruption and mismanagement, another problem. All these are challenges facing good governance. Then you can also think of what we call illiteracy. Sometimes there are low levels of awareness among the people. People don't know what is going on. The people are uninformed and unaware of what is going on. Some people have not received enough education, and so they don't know how to read and write. And that's why the government actually makes sure people get to go to school, the children go to school for free, so that these levels of illiteracy and lack of awareness are removed with time. There's also a problem of lack of or poor internet connection, especially in the rural areas. There is no internet, so people don't know what is going on and they cannot be connected to the rest of the world. Now, in as much as possible, the whole world today tries to have what we call good governance. Most of the countries are ensuring that there is democratic governance, and this and accountability and transparency and efficiency and effectiveness. Now, for purposes of efficiency, most governments employing what we call information and communication technology, what we call ICT. And governments are putting in place necessary infrastructure to develop and nurture the necessary human resources and provide adequate financial resources to help that ICT is developed, because ICT facilitates good governance. Now, the Rwandan government has made major strides in trying to put in place the necessary human resources and financial resources. And most of the operations of the government, there is what we call e-governance or electronic governance, where you don't need to go to a human being to do the work or to get a service. Now you can get a service online, you can get the service through your phone. And our government services are easier to access through an online platform locally. For example, now here we have Irembo. Irembo is a service that is greatly improving service delivery. And this improved service delivery is one of the most important aspects of achieving good governance. Now, the time taken in service delivery has reduced because of the platform of Irembo. And there is close monitoring of those in charge of service provision, because you don't deal with a human being. If someone is giving you a service, the service is noted, and then there are records that are kept. So there is bureaucracy that has been reduced. You don't go through people and through different offices to get a service. You can do all that through one platform. And then it is easy to keep the records of service provision because you're dealing with electronics. There must be storage of these devices. You don't need, the office cannot catch fire and then all the records disappear, because these records must be kept on some kind of storage device or server somewhere. So with e-governance, the government has increased citizenship participation, and there has been promotion of transparency and accountability and many other benefits. Now, the last question I want you to think about is the role of the private sector and civil society organizations in promoting good governance in Rwanda. And I'm going to leave that question with you, so that to look around, think about what we call, because I told you the private sector, the business people, the companies, the different companies that are doing business within the country, and then the civil society organizations are the NGOs. For example, we have IEE, Inspire, Educate, and Empower Rwanda. We have MasterCard Foundation. We have different organizations, UNICEF. All of these, what is their role in the promotion of good governance in a country like Rwanda? As our lesson comes to an end, as to remind ourselves of what we have looked at, we have said good governance is professional and effective service delivery by the government to the citizens of the country. And we have also said that good governance requires what we call participation, transparency, equity, and equality, and effectiveness and efficiency of the people who are working in the government. So we looked at different characteristics of good governance, and we also saw the challenges faced by the government as they provide services to the people. And in our next lesson, we'll talk about the three powers of state and the functions of each of these powers. I want you to find out what these three powers are and what each of them is made up of. Then remember to find out the functions of these powers. Look at what the three powers are, what each of them is made up of, and then find out what the functions of each of them is. I want to thank you for being such attentive learners, and I want to find you safe and healthy in our next lesson. Listen to your parents and the guidelines given to you by the government and the Ministry of Health regarding the COVID-19 pandemic. We need to be healthy, we need to be safe. See you next time. Ciao.
Goodbye, 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 teacher. Goodbye, children. See you next time. Goodbye, 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 teacher. Goodbye, children. See you next time.